Hi YouTubers. Today I got up this morning and I took the car. I went down to Southend, which is about 40, maybe 50 miles from where I live, and I picked up some guitars. It was advertised as a 1970s K. I did some online research only to find that there was nothing. So we're going to start a little bit of review to find out whether this is an OKK or not an OKK guitar. So the first thing you notice is that the headstock we have the same kind of tuners that were fairly prevalent. You find those on most of these sort of Japanese guitars from that period. Now another thing to note on this neck is it's a laminated neck. I'm pretty certain about that. By that I mean it looks like, since it runs all the way down, it looks like it's made up of individual pieces of wood. Sakai did do a number of these guitar necks that were made this way, although they were quite a bit more obvious than this one. I think if you look at the top there you can see some bits that have been laminated there. We have matching strap holders. That's good. On the back we have a neck plate that has one screw here that looks like an original to me, and three other screws that look like they've been replaced. And the plate itself is very thin, but it's also quite large. It goes beyond the where the neck finishes. I took the neck plate off the guitar and I'm holding it up next to this K bass that I own, and it's clearly the same size. That tells me this is likely a K neck plate, almost certainly a K neck plate. There's something else I noticed. The sticker below the neck plate is the same as the one on the guitar, same kind of silver, same setup. Model number KL-1, and then there's a serial number. These string retaining grommets, I'm sure there's a proper word for it. You can see that they're very badly installed. They're not all in line, and some are closer together than others. What that means exactly, I have no idea. You have the K emblem on the scratch plate. You have the two switches, which is very typical of the period, so that's a good sign. The knobs are not typical of the period, so I'll take that off. They were added later, both of those. Looking around the screws, they all look as original as I would expect. There's a couple missing. Then we've got two sort of single coil Fender type pickups. Now, these don't usually appear on these older Japanese guitars, although I know, looking in a book that I have, that some of these were actually made and were installed in some Japanese guitars. And then you've got this very odd sort of saddle and bridge thing, which allows you to dial in some intonation. Again, that's fairly unusual for the Japanese style guitars of the period. And then this is a bit odd. There's this hole in the scratch plate so you can access the truss rod. The truss rod is very low inside that hole. That's quite unusual. I've not seen it that far out of reach. Looking at the edge here, you can see it's misshapen. It's almost as if perhaps this was cut out later so that you could get access to the truss rod. It could be that this original scratch plate didn't have that. Does the pick plate match the body? Hard to say, it gets quite far out on the edge there. It matches the contour there quite nicely. It sort of goes the other way here, away from the horn. And then this K emblem, it's going back to that. The ones I've seen are normally white. That one looks to be almost sandblasted into the plastic. So I don't know what that means, if that was done in the factory or if that was also done later. One other thing that's happened here is that some person has put a terrible nut in there. It looks like it's been made out of a piece of chopping board, which is way too high, and as a result of that they've screwed two string trees to pull down the strings, which is a shame. I would expect that one there on the right to be the original, the other two they're different types, and the screws don't even match, so they've been added presumably to try to counteract the problems that nut creates. Well, hi again. I got the pick plate and the gubbins out. It's two pots, one's 100k, one's 500k. That's the typical jack plug socket, typical switches. Now looking at the body, the screws from the pick plate are the only screws that have entered the body. One set of screw holes that line up with the pick plate, which is interesting. That sort of implies that this pick plate is the only one that's been on this body. The weird thing is that when you look inside the cavity, there's overspray, but then there's router marks here that don't quite line up. There's more gloss there than there is here. There's also a lip here, which is weird. That's as if a router was set too deep and it's sort of cut underneath. This is a plywood body, as you can see there. That would indicate that it's from the sort of 70s. They made a lot of plywood guitars. This angle here is not square, it comes down at an angle. There's a cutout here which seems quite unprofessional, as if that was done by hand. A number of things that don't quite line up, like this way this is cut here. I don't think this has been sprayed by outside of a factory. I think it's a factory spray. Hi, well, I took the string saddle and bridge off. The only holes there are the holes that line up with this bit here, so it doesn't look like there's ever been another string saddle or bridge here. So the thing I find a bit alarming is the holes where the strings go through into the body are very badly drilled. It looks as if they were probably drilled from the other side, and then the drill bits just come through the wood and broken it, kind of chipped it off, and they've just left it and then painted it, because in some places the paint covers where the bits are broken away. Not very well lined up. It's almost as if it was done by hand. I'm going to remove the neck now. The heel of the neck has a stamp on it where it says 700603. So that would sort of indicate that this is 70s neck, which is what I thought. You can see the laminations at the bottom there quite clearly. While I've been looking at the neck, I've noticed that it's faded on the back. It's also faded on the side. You can see where it gets lighter. On this side it's a little less clear, but it's faded up to about here. And when I look at the body, I start to sort of see how this makes sense, because the longer of the two fades is on the back side there, and the shorter of the two fades is on the front side. And of course you know what's coming next. When they go together, when it's slotted in, those faded areas are all three, including the back of the neck. They're all inside the body, so because they're inside the body, they have faded. So that seems to be a sign that this guitar neck does belong with this guitar body. On the back there are only 4 screw holes. They align with the 4 outer screw holes. There are 2 more holes here, here and here. I don't know why they are there. If I look at the paint going into the screw holes, I see that the original, what I would consider to be the original 4 holes, has paint sort of going inside it, whereas these don't. Looking at these screw holes again, I was wondering, could this screw hole and this screw hole, could they have been used to attach the body to a piece of wood that was used while it was being sprayed? If a piece of wood was laid in here, attached here and here, and then this body was sprayed, it seems to make sense that the paint would be here, and perhaps a little bit at the back there, but it wouldn't be in this area where the wood was attached. There's a very small lip here. Let's see if I can show you from the front. I don't know if you can see that. There, perhaps. So at some point this has been widened. Luckily though, when this neck is in there, it makes contact with the top surface. I think I can say that the bridge saddle, this was the original one. These holes look like they were there originally but very badly drilled out. That's a little surprising, especially when you see it from the other side. I think the scratch plate is the original. It seems to fit all the appropriate holes. The neck pocket, this is mysterious because looking at the paint you would think that that's the original depth of the neck pocket. Nothing's been done to change it. But what is the reason for this here on the side? How did this happen? Did it come out of the factory that way? There is some black overspray at the back there, which might indicate that it did, in which case it was poorly routed. Also in here, there's an awful lot of overhang on the sides, which I showed you before. Over here, and some here too. Rather like what's going on in the neck pocket, but much worse. Why is that? What happened there? And finally, why is the neck so low in the socket that you can barely have access to the truss rod adjusting nut? Why is that cut out there? Looks like someone possibly cut it somehow, but not very well. It doesn't really look like a factory finish. That concerns me. The fact that the truss rod is so low means that the adjusting tool has gone in and has probably made those dents by pressing onto it. So is it the original neck? It is a K neck. I don't think there's any disputing that, but is it the original neck that went on this guitar? I'd like some answers to that question. I'd love to see another photo of this guitar. But beyond that, I would say the body is original. The neck is an original K. But are they supposed to be together?
Returning to the internet, I started looking for more photographs. I came across this website called worthpoint.com where there was one of these guitars for sale in 2014. There were 2 photographs on the website, one of the headstock, which I'm going to show you now. You can see very clearly that the headstock has 2 string trees attached to it, and that the headstock is made of laminated wood. Also, the 6 inline tuners appear to be the same as the ones I have on my guitar, even though they have been removed at some point. But more importantly, this confirms that I have the correct neck on the guitar. The second photo is very clear. You can see the picture of the guitar standing in the corner. You can see the pickguard is exactly the same as the one on my guitar. There are 2 single coil pickups the same. From what I can tell from the photo, although it's rather small, I can see the spring saddle and bridge looks to be exactly the same. In this photo you see an image of the model KL-2, which was the only other photo of the series I could find online. You can see the two plastic volume and tone knobs seem to be the same ones as the previous image I showed you. So I suspect those are originals, so I should be looking for a pair of those to complete the restoration. You can also see the K logo clearly defined in gold. On my guitar, the K logo seems to have been sandblasted or possibly removed by a previous owner. There is also one more mystery that's been resolved by this picture. You can see the cutout in the pick plate, and you can clearly see the truss rod adjusting nut below the surface. So I think it's fair to assume that my guitar is complete, does have all the original parts except for the knobs. There's one more important piece of information I wish to share. The ad that accompanied this picture read as follows. On the back reads model number KL-1, serial number 100-205, Taiwan. I think this guitar is from around the 70s. So I think that pretty much concludes that this guitar was manufactured in Taiwan, the same as my bass. The only remaining mystery is what happened to the inside of the cavity with that rather odd routing that seemed to go underneath the surface of the body, and in the neck cavity the same. Was that done after the guitar was originally manufactured, or was that just the way it came out of the factory? I hope you've enjoyed my video. If you leave a comment, I'll do my best to respond. Please leave a thumbs up, and if you feel so inclined, please subscribe.